Hi, it's Washington State Republican Party Chairman Jim Walsh here for our weekly Chairman's Update. Been an interesting week, been an interesting couple of weeks. What I want to talk about today are the results of the general election on November 5th. Um, it's been interesting to watch how the media here in Washington has tried to spin and frame the results of the November 5th election. Generally, the results showed some slight improvement for the Republican Party and for Republican candidates around the state. Now, we still did not get many of the key statewide races. Uh, we did not do as well as we'd hoped in the governor's race. We did not win state attorney general or commissioner of public lands or really any of the other statewide executive races. So we did not pick up any of those seats. We didn't have them before. We don't have them now. But the hopeful part is that we did incrementally better in almost all of those statewide races. Our candidates did better, especially in the commissioner of public lands race and the state attorney general race. And so there are some signs of incremental, slight improvement. You wouldn't know it from the media coverage of November 5th. The mainstream media here in Washington jumped all over the false premise that Washington had gotten bluer. They looked rather hastily at some preliminary numbers that turned out not to be right. In fact, Washington State got a little redder in the 2024 election cycle. Donald Trump's numbers were a little better in 2024 than they had been in 2020. Those statewide candidates I mentioned, particularly the Commissioner of Public Lands and State Attorney General, better, really substantially better than 4 years ago. In the key competitive congressional races, again, we inched up, moving from a sort of median performance of something like 41% to a median performance of something like 45%. Now, it's still not 50% plus one, but it is the incremental improvement that suggests we are heading the right direction and maybe in a place where in another election cycle or two, our candidates, Republican candidates here in the state of Washington, are starting out at something like an even footing. This takes hard work. It's not the party that gets headlines always or makes dramatic swings in the political environment. The party is more of a grinder. We incrementally improve, and that will continue going forward. The idea is that the party builds the framework, the organizational structure in which a good candidate can score, can win, can get the headlines and the victory, get elected to public office. And in the time that I've been state party chair, I've been working on restructuring the party and rebuilding it so that it is that structure, that frame in which a good, common sense conservative candidate can be elected to public office. We saw some places locally that where the system worked well. In central Washington, the highly disputed, controversial 14th legislative district, which was the subject of a highly controversial, really, in my opinion, unlawful court action that redrew the lines of that 14th legislative district. It was predicted to be a gimme to Democrat candidates. They were going to win easily. They didn't. The Republican candidates in the 14th legislative district, because of hard work, a great local party ground game, the support of the state party, and just good candidates, those Republican candidates won. They were elected to the legislature, even though their district had been gerrymandered in a very crooked scheme perpetuated by the courts in Seattle, the federal court in Seattle. So that was a great win. We saw some other wins around the state where really mostly we held onto legislative seats and a couple of congressional seats. And at the very local level, we saw some good surprises among county level races, some county commission races, and a couple of PUD races, PUD commissioner races. Those local races where conservative candidates won to the surprise of some people, even locally. So we have the pieces of bigger electoral wins. We just don't have the bigger electoral wins here in the state yet. But I promise you, the work we've done in the last year and a half and the work we're going to continue to do, we are going to continue that incremental, slightly improvement structurally and building out the organization of the state party so that slightly gets us to the tipping point where we do win the governor race, where we do win the state attorney general, the commissioner of public lands, the higher profile marquee races. That's going to take continued hard work on our part. It's going to continue to require an all fronts strategy. We're going to continue to be active in the courts. We will sue. We will file lawsuits when we need to. We will continue to work in the court of public opinion, in the media. It's been a lot of work for me just in the last week or so to try to push that media frame to acknowledge that the state got a little redder and counterbalance those early false reports that the state had gotten bluer. That takes time, that takes effort, and that's behind the scenes stuff. You don't always see it, even in the media. But it's shaping media narrative, helping move the narrative frame toward the truth, and certainly toward the political middle. All of this will continue. And lastly, we need to continue to organize ourselves and reorganize ourselves. We have the reorganization meetings coming up starting in December. But we need to coordinate as well as reorganize. We've been challenged for the last several years to be a coordinated organization where each element of our state party coordinates well with itself and coordinates well with the local parties. It's been work as we reshape the Washington State Republican Party to be a more bottom-up organization, to be an organization that's really driven by and defined by the grassroots activists. But it's not just the grassroots that's part of our coalition. It is other groups. It is some industry groups who care about good public policy and law in Washington. It is some outside organizations and PACs who aren't even from Washington, but who care about what's going on in Washington. It's partner organizations who may work on initiatives or may work on specific points in legislation, coordinating with them well. And yes, it is major donors who've always been a part of our party, of any party, anywhere in the world, anywhere in the country, anywhere in the state. We need to bring all of these elements together in a more coordinated way. That's my challenge as your state party chair. But I want to leave you this week with this thought. Even the Seattle Times, not always a friend of our party, acknowledged today that Washington State, in fact, got a little redder in the November election. That has something to do with Donald Trump, but that has something to do with you. It has a lot to do with how our party, despite controversies and heated primaries and all the things, our party is improving. Our party is becoming more effective. Our party is becoming more responsive. And that, in the long game, is what will help us win. We're heading the right direction. I look forward to the next few years as we do slightly better and slightly better and slightly better, and then tip the scale. That's it for this week. I'm probably not going to talk to you again until Thanksgiving comes next week. So have a great Thanksgiving. I hope you spend it well with your families and your friends. Enjoy it. And let's look forward to getting back to work in our reorganization meeting starting in December and going into the new year. There's so much to do, and I am optimistic that with your hard work and our coordination, Washington will get redder and redder and redder. Until next time, be well and stay strong.